welcome along to PSGL Season 31. This is the top tier on the PlayStation platform, and we head to a circuit that has never been visited in PSGL before. It is, of course, the Miami International Autodrome, the home of the Miami Dolphins for the Miami Grand Prix in the United States. My name is Jess Ball, and joining me in the commentary box, as always, we got Mr. Aidan Carter. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to hopefully a really exciting round at, like you say, a brand new track. So that's going to be something that's really interesting to see tonight, and off the back of a very interesting day in real life Formula One as well. So hopefully we can carry over a bit of the excitement from that into the online world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it wasn't as interesting, the Miami Grand Prix in real life, but I'm sure in league racing, good league races are a lot better than obviously what we see in real life as well. But we did have a race last week. We were around the Austrian Grand Prix, the Red Bull Ring, and we saw Valtteri take the win. He started on pole, but he didn't necessarily put it to a victory. You had battles with Ascom, you had battles with Danica and Orgiana and Tom as well, but there was just a few drivers that got very unlucky as well. And we also had a wet qualifying as well that shook up the order a little bit. But Valtteri starts the season on top. Can he replicate that in Miami, do you think?
It's going to be difficult, I would say. I would say you couldn't really have too different a circuit, really, could you, between Austria now? Austria only has 10 corners, and probably only 6 of those are proper corners that you really have to think about. You come to Miami, there's 19, there's walls everywhere, really high curbs you have to worry about, not a lot of runoff. So it's a very different circuit in nature to the Red Bull Ring. So I think it'd be difficult for Philip Walters to maybe pick up the same head of steam. But if he does pick up the win tonight, if he is able to do so, then that's a bit of a warning shot for everybody else, because being able to win on 2 completely different circuits like that is a bit of a worry for everybody else going into the rest of the calendar, that he's so strong on different types of circuits.
Yeah, and there's certain drivers that didn't do very well. Santeri DNF'd last week. We had Misha DNF'd as well. And there was a few drivers that were missing last week too. So we're into the unknown for some of these drivers this week as well. And we got a debut of Rudy this week. He missed last week, but he's making his appearance today. And you're not going to like this, by the way, when I'm about to show the screen. Last week, we had a wet qualifying. We thought we were going to have a dry qualifying this week. Well, for the second week in a row, it is a wet qualifying session. It just doesn't like the dry in PSF1, does it?
No, I said it last week that we were plagued with wet weather all the way through last season, and it's happening again. 2 wet quali sessions in a row. I'm sure a lot of these drivers after Austria are going to be pretty annoyed that we've got another wet qualifying session, and on a track like this, that is going to be a proper test for these drivers. And especially if it's a dry race, they're going to have to compromise in qualifying and keep a dry setup on, and that will make things all the more difficult. So that'd be really interesting to see what these drivers can do in these wet conditions. But Walters pulled out of the bag somewhat last week. Can he do the same again this week?
Yeah, indeed. We got Jensen, who is the first man out on track at the moment, who is going to be starting his hot lap very, very soon as well. And DRS will be disabled, but there's quite some tricky corners around this Fast and Furious track as well. Obviously, turn 1, you can go flat out a little bit getting towards there, but you can't really do that in the wet as well. And that, as you can see as well, you pass this DRS straight as well. You're about to go towards the type of Vietnam corner coming up. It kind of reminds me of the Hanoi circuit. I wonder if it's designed by the same person. I don't think it is as well. People tend to run off wide a little bit there as well, so we'll catch a few people out as well, but not many people practice for the wet around it. But I think we've seen in a lot of tiers during the week as well, especially with PC. It's quite common to have rain around Miami as well in qualifying and in the race, so we'll see what Jensen can do. Everyone is out on track for their outlap, so I assume, is the track going to get worse before it gets better?
With everybody out this early, it's a bit interesting, isn't it? I think we're going to see a lot of people do a lot of runs again. We're going to have quite a bit of fuel in these cars going for multiple laps on the intermediate tyres just to get them up to temperature and get people in their comfort zones in these wet conditions. Last time it kind of stayed very stagnant, but if it is going to get worse, then yeah, they're going to have to be out now. They can't risk it and leave it late on, as Jensen on the power coming out of the final corner really struggling to put the power down.
Yep, he is. I think he's finding a loss of grip at the moment, and obviously some of the drivers have to change their tyre pressure a little bit more as well to cater for the setup changes as well, and he's really struggling coming out of turn 2 as well. He's weaving everywhere. He still hasn't got his tyres up to temperature, but like you were saying earlier, it will take a while, so expect him to, I think, abort this lap and go on another one. Let's see if anyone else is on a much better time as well. Santeri, who, like we said, DNF'd last week, he's in a McLaren at the moment, one of the pre-season favourites, I would say, going into this season. Let's see how he manages the first couple of corners. He copes it a little bit better, but still he's weaving a little bit to try and get those tyres up to temperature as well. You're going to be heading towards the S's coming up as well. You're past the harbour section as well, which looks more real than it does in real life, whereas actually doesn't look real, which is very, very weird. But I think this circuit in the game was built before obviously the Miami Grand Prix came to obviously the F1 real life, where we saw Max Verstappen win that race as well and had a very nice battle with Charles Leclerc. This was one of the corners where we had a nice battle with as we head towards the Vietnam corner as well. You're going to be heading towards the hairpin very soon as well. There'll be a left, right, left as well. You're going to keep to the right a little bit with this wet line as well, and then you just clip that right hand side there, then to the left, right, and then you're going to go to the left again. You've got to react very, very quickly in these cars as well, because otherwise you're going to be in a spot of bother, because we've seen a few people in the other tiers hit the wall through there, both in qualifying and the race. Jensen set the first lap time on the board, but obviously Rowan getting about 1.2 seconds quicker. So here comes Santeri then. He's going to go past into the final few corners. 19 corners make this Miami International Autodrome circuit, with 12 to the left and 7 to the right, as Santeri is going to come up to the line. Fabi comes across the line in P2. Can Santeri get provisional pole? Yes, he does. Just 1/10 quicker than Rowan at the moment. We've got a few more up to the line as well. Let's see if they can beat Santeri at the moment. Not quite, as Nemaya goes in P3. He didn't have a good race last week, did he?
No, unfortunately, didn't really have a great race last time out. Started on the softs, didn't he? And it just wasn't the right strategy at all. Just kind of fell through the field from the start and never really recovered. I think we've got a spin at turn 19. I think Mishy's had a moment in the Ferrari. Yes, he has only a 51 flat. Managed, I think, to keep it out of the wall by the looks of things. But yeah, just spun at the very last corner of the lap and wasn't able to get a representative time on the board. Still a lot of people without times. Wouters I was on board with that lap, sliding all over the place, invalidated in the middle part of the lap, as did Dinerco. So quite a few people really struggling in the opening phases of this qualifying session. I think it's taken maybe a bit longer than these drivers were expecting to get these tyres up to temperature. Even people at the end of their runs are still sliding all over the place in traction zone. So I imagine these times are just going to get faster and faster as the session goes on. I'm trying to keep an eye on any of the earlier runners to see if they're improving on their lap. Jensen, unfortunately, has invalidated on their first one. I think Rowan was one of the other ones further along. They're 0.3 of a second up, but they're going to dive straight into the pit lane. So I don't think Rowan had enough fuel in the car maybe to do more than one run, which is a bit concerning. That second on the grid, not bad for the time being, but if he only had enough fuel to do the one run and other drivers have been able to get times around him with more fuel in the car, then you would expect Rowan probably to fall down the field just that little bit. I'm trying to see if anybody else is on a good run. Wouters crosses the line, first valid lap, puts in P6 just behind Asacombe.
Yes, so they will be going on more than one lap on the intermediate tyres, because they only have pretty much a few intermediate tyres for the race, if this obviously has a wet race to begin with as well. Hopefully it's dry for our sake at the moment. You can already see Valtteri is getting a little bit more comfortable on the throttle as well. More application applied as well, as Asacombe, who did quite well last week, 1:37.0. First man, almost getting to the 1:36. We saw one of the Alpines up to the line. That was Rudy. I don't think he was able to improve on that run. No, he wasn't. So he stays in P9 for now. What about the Ferrari? I think Mish will be on another run. Yes, Mish will be on another run, but 1:46.5 he has unfortunately invalidated on this previous one. Quite a lot of people seem to be invalidating. Do you think it's probably just a new track and not many people have done many laps around this circuit?
I would probably say so, yeah. I think the fact that this track is fairly new, and when you do get a new track, the first thing on your mind isn't really to go out in the wet on a new track, really, is it? You want to go out in the dry and see what the new track feels like. So I imagine a lot of drivers have not done wet conditions around here at all before. And obviously with the painted curbs and the white lines, and there not really being a lot of runoff and stuff, it can be very easy to miss the white line and just simply invalidate a lot of corners, especially in the first part of the lap if you get a bit too greedy on curbs. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see quite a few people making some mistakes and invalidating on their laps. You kind of have to use the curbs a lot to be fast around this circuit, and if you if you don't use the curbs, you can use a lot of time, and if you do use the curbs too much, then you'll invalidate. So that's just kind of the fine line you have to balance yourself really around the Miami circuit. I'm just seeing if anybody else is on a good lap at the moment, but nobody seems to be up apart from Santeri, who's just coming round turn 18 and 19 now and up towards the line. Comes the McLaren, crosses the line into the 36s quite comfortably by nearly half a second at the top of the timesheets over Asseco. Asseco was the top dog in qualifying for the majority of the qualifying session in Austria before losing the pole position at the end and falling to 7th. Recovered nicely in the race, but was definitely the star of qualifying before it all fell away from him when it dried out towards the end of the session, as Rudy, on his first race of the season, goes into P3 in the Alpine. That's a pretty decent time considering he missed the first round of the season.
Yes, for those of you that don't know who Rudy is, he was your F3 champion from last season. You would expect people like Tom, who was our F2 champion from last season, to go up, but it's nice to see the F3 champion move up as well with them as well. It just shows how much the game has changed throughout the years as well, where we have multiple champions move up from divisions as well. We have seen in some seasons, we've seen people come from F5 all the way down to the top 2 tiers. So anything can happen as well. And obviously we saw Marcos, who's moved up quite a few divisions as well. So yes, if you're good at the last game, it doesn't mean that you'll be good at this game, and vice versa. And we're seeing Kazizel, who is taking the new game like ducks to water at the moment in P3. Wasn't expecting to be up there. He's filling in for one of the McLarens tonight as well, who unfortunately can't make his second race as reserve. He's looking to make amends after last week. We've got Louis, who's about to go across to, he's going to come across turn 2 and 3 now. He had a very stellar performance. One of my drivers of the race last week, actually. He finished in P5. One of the drivers that got promoted from F2 all the way up into F1, and he was a driver that was in the unknown when I started commentating on him, but last season he did very well, got quite a few podiums, was near the top 5 in the standings, and finished in the top 5 last week in Austria as well. He's the only person yet to set a lap time. He's not being too comfortable about this track at the moment. Still some more time to find for him, but I do believe we've got a Haas who's up to the line. I think Rowan could be on another lap. Nope, it's not a Haas actually, because he is invalidated and gone into the pit. So both Haas have invalidated, unfortunately. But yeah, let's see what Louis could do, as he's the only man yet to set a lap time as he heads towards the tricky chicane up here, going into this very tricky section, this little crest, which I find a bit of a shock to get used to on this game. But yeah, very impressed me last week. Let's see what he could do this week.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him continue that run. Like you say, he didn't really have a show-stopping performance last time out, but he was very consistent, kind of flew under the radar a little bit and had a solid race, kept it in P5, was in that lead train for the whole race and just kind of stayed there. Wasn't really threatening the guys in front, but wasn't under pressure from behind. So a really solid, decent start to the season for Louis, and something that he can build on. So we'll see as he comes up towards the line. Where does he put the Aston Martin? P15 only for the time being. So not the best first laps, but we're seeing drivers out there at the moment do 4 laps on the intermediate tyres. Denerco's gone to second. The only other driver in the 36s, apart from Santeri, on his 4th lap on the intermediate tyres, managed to get onto the front row of the grid. So it'll be interesting to see whether Louis keeps going for more runs or whether he decides to pit or doesn't have enough fuel in the car. Denerco, interestingly, by the way, last time out, probably on the face of it, a bit of an underwhelming performance from the Ferrari driver, but I think it's my understanding, after looking on social media, that he had damage from pretty much turn 1, lap 1, and just kept the damage for the whole race. He didn't want to lose time in the pit lane changing his front wing, so just stayed out with the damage and still managed to bring home a pretty solid result for the first race of the season. So while on the face of it, it was a bit under the radar from the Ferrari driver, who was one of the title challengers last season in F1, he definitely has got strong pace and is still a front runner this season, as proved by the fact he's currently second on the grid.
Yeah, definitely as well. He kind of reminds me of Max Verstappen as well in Hungary last year, where he picked up so much damage, but he was able to climb his way through the field and still get some points. So I think Denerco is just one of those drivers that can get used to any game, and it doesn't matter what damage he gets, then it's all right. Or maybe it's just the characteristics of the game. Maybe getting minor damage is not as bad as F1 2021, I would say, or F1 2020. I know getting minor damage on F1 2021 was an absolute nightmare. So Denerco doing so well at the moment. I think we've got more people crossing the line now, so we'll follow these guys. We've got H Eagle, who's going through sector 1. His teammate Valters, who got pole last week, is about to start his next run. He stayed in 11th place. Well, it means a lot in the last game, but not on this game. I think he wants wants to gain a little bit higher than that, if he wants to get pole position like last week, or will he have something saved up his sleeve like last week and doesn't want to be in too much pressure early on in the session and then have a little bit of a shock? We saw a bit of a shock in real life, didn't we? So maybe Baltus was replicating what George Russell did on Saturday as well. More people are now going on fresh runs on the intermediate tyres with 5 minutes to go. This could be their final set of runs in this qualifying session, because I don't think they're going to have time to go again with how slow their out laps are going to be in these wet conditions. So if they don't get their laps together now, this could be the end of qualifying at the moment. But Santeri's around on top, Rowan in second, Dan Urko's going to the pits for his fresh run, and Namaya as well. Very impressive performance for him so far. He's popped his car into P4.
Yeah, good lap there from the Aston Martin driver. He had a good qualifying last time out as well. Obviously, the strategy wasn't the right way to go, like we mentioned, but I believe qualified 7th last time out, if I remember correctly. So was in the top 10 in the first qualifying session of the season as well. So maybe not a surprise to see Nemaya up there once again, having a good run. Tom as well, just gone up to 5th place. And I think the track is now just starting to get that bit faster by the looks of things. People are now starting to dip into the 36s quite commonly. So I think we're going to see people get faster and faster from this point onwards. Just trying to see who else is on a lap. Fusilo's just crossed the line to start their next run. Fusilo, the only one at the moment without a representative time on the board. It's a Williams back row, looking a bit too familiar to real life at the moment, unfortunately, for the Williams pair, as Philip Wouters crosses the line up into 3rd. That is more like it from the winner last time out, onto the 2nd row of the grid, but still not quite within range of Santeri, who's on pole by just over a 10th of a second. And interestingly, Santeri went out on the track there and was just about to finish his first run on that next set of intermediate tyres, but bailed on it and came into the pit lane. So I don't know if he's picked up any damage or whether he's just decided he doesn't want to keep running on the intermediate tyres. We'll wait and see what that means later on. Maybe there is wet weather predicted for the race and he's trying to save in his set of intermediate tyres for the race conditions. But yeah, a bit bizarre that he decided not to complete that lap in the end. I'm just keeping an eye on Asacombe as well in the AlphaTauri to see what they can do. Let's see what he can do across the second sector split in the AlphaTauri. Currently 7th on the grid and he's a 10th and a bit up, so should gain a couple of places. But for Asacombe, maybe not the standout qualifying that we were expecting this time around compared to Austria. Austria, of course, didn't get pole, but was one of the standouts of the session. So far, not really shining in this wet qualifying session.
Maybe he didn't have enough time to practice around this track, maybe as well. You could possibly tell which drivers in practice and which drivers are not. It's kind of like Portimao last season as well, where a few drivers raced there as well, as we've got Asacombe up to the line. That's more like it for the AlphaTauri driver. P2, only 1 attempt shy of pole position. I'm sure there's more time in it, like you said, to beat Santeri, but I think there's a few more people that can go insanely quicker. We've got Valls as well, who's going again on his run. He's running out of fuel, so I think he's going to have time to go again, go into the pits maybe and go on a fresh set of boots, but he doesn't have that long. Next across the line, I think it's just most people on outlaps, to be honest. I think Louis will be the next to start his run at the moment, currently in 18th position. I'm sure he wants to be a lot higher if he wants to set some consistent point scoring finishes, because I think that's what a lot of people want to do around this circuit. I think quite a few people said to me when I asked for their thoughts about the season, saying they don't like Miami, and I think I could probably tell from the lap times at the moment, because it's a bit spread out for some of the drivers. But I have to say, the top 5 are pretty close, separating by 2 or 3 tenths per second. The Maya's close as well. Then the next car is about a tenth separating them. It's like the 2 Mercedes working together as well, and obviously the Mercedes could have been on from the top of the constructors, but with Tom bottling it last week, he just wasn't up there as well, and we thought he was going to win the race last week, but he just got a bit too unlucky as well. But he's going to go out again, of course. Everyone is going to go out again for one final time. It's interesting to see quite a few people actually aborted their runs.
Yeah, quite a lot of people, like you say, aborted their runs, and I think people like Rowan and Santeri are on their 3rd set of intermediate tyres. They only get 4, I believe, for a race weekend, and it's 3 sets of wets, unless it's 3 sets of inters and 2 sets of wets. I'll have to see if anybody knows that one, but I think it's 4 sets of intermediate, so to use 3 already is a bit risky, especially if there is wet weather coming in the race conditions. And just keeping an eye with Rowan, who's just started their final lap in this session. I don't think they'll have enough time to come around for one last run, so it's kind of all on this lap at the moment. And we saw in Austria last time out, the ones that were last across the line to start their final runs were the ones that benefited from the best track conditions at the end. So you've kind of really got to time this one at the end of the session and try and get it to the line as late as you possibly can. Just seeing anybody further along a lap, I think Nemaya is one of the ones coming to start their next one in the session. Louis crossed the line, didn't improve unfortunately, was quite quite a bit down on his personal best, so going again on that set of intermediate tyres. And Fusilio at the back crossing the line is still way down on his time. Fusilio's really struggling in these wet conditions. He's, well, 1.5 seconds off the back of 19th place at the moment. Fusilio in that Williams is not liking the wet conditions around Miami whatsoever, and you can just tell on board with the Williams, he's so tentative over the curbs, and then is having to run out wide, so because he can't take a tight line, otherwise he's just going to spin the car. So yeah, I think Fusilio's praying for a dry race here, because in the wet he looks like he's got absolutely no confidence at all.
Yeah, it looks like it as well. He kind of reminds me of Jensen as well, that he was struggling to get a little bit of grip in the car at the moment. So I think he's going to find it a little bit more difficult, as we've got Fabi there who decided to call it a day. He can't improve on his lap time, as we've seen, I think, an improvement on lap time at the back as well. I think we've got more people in the 136s, so we'll see what Brock could do. He's going to be the first person to cross the line. The checker flag has dropped for PSF1 qualifying around the Miami International Autodrome. Brock does not improve. He can only manage P9. We've got a Red Bull up to the line. Marcados, he goes into the pits, so that is qualifying done for him. Cazizzo, he improves by 1/10, but doesn't improve on position. He improves to P11. Santeri, who is on pole, he is continuing to be on pole at the moment, 1:36.5. He improves by 1/10 of a second. Can any of the Alpines do any better? We've got Jensen, who is in the middle sector at the moment. We'll see if he can improve just a little bit more. We've got Alfa Romeo up to the line soon as well through the final sector, and the Maya. I'm sure there's a few people on a little bit further on their laps as well. I think we've got one on the Williams, but again, I think both the Williams seem to be struggling here this weekend. Let's see what the Maya could do in the Aston Martin. Remember Fernando Alonso, which we recently got transferred to Aston Martin for next year. Can the Maya channel is near Fernando Alonso? No, he doesn't. He remains in P5. Not many people are improving on their final runs. The only man I think that could do it is Tom. Nope, he can't do it. Tom goes into the pits. Alpha Tauri, I think, is going to go into the pits as well. Jensen is backed off. I think Valdes could be the only one that can improve. It could be a replica of last week, but he's a tenth down on his previous best. He's got to have a miraculous final sector in order to get pole position down to the one. He was even struggling in the final corner as well, so I don't think it's going to be enough. No, but it's not. He doesn't even improve. He lost 2/10 in that final sector. P4 is going to be his final time. That is it then for qualifying. And the man that's been dominating qualifying has got pole, and that is Santeri. That's more like it for him, who struggled last week. Excellent effort, and not. It's quite a little bit of a difference actually between himself and Mascombe. It's but about a 10th separating between the two of them. So very impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. And you've got to say the top six maybe in a bit of a league of their own, from Nemaya to Tom in 6th and 7th, and nearly 0.2 of a second. So the top six look like they've, in the wet at least, got a bit of a gap to the rest of the field. Of course, if it's dry, that could be completely different. But that was a bit of a weird end to the session, wasn't it? Last time out in Austria when it was wet, everybody was improving on their final runs. And this time around, other than Santeri, we didn't really see anybody make any big gains. The only one that was on a decent lap was Denurco. He was 0.2 up by the end of the second sector and pretty much lost all the time in the final part of the lap. So whether it got a little bit wetter by the end of the session, not quite sure, but it definitely seemed like the track conditions didn't really improve by the end of the session like maybe some drivers were expecting. So yeah, I think Santeri maybe timed that nicely with the conditions as well. Didn't even need to set that final run. His first run would have been enough to secure pole anyway, but yeah, at the end of the session I don't think the track conditions came to anybody else, and Santeri in the end was in the right place at the right time.
Yep, indeed. We'll go for your qualifying session results then. Hopefully next week at Belgium we'll have a dry qualifying session, please, touch wood. Anyway, Santeri on pole position with a 1:36.5. Then we got Asacombe in P2, Rowan in P3, Philip Valters in P4, Dan Urko P5, Nemaya in P6, Tom in P7, Jensen P8, Brock in 9th, Mish in 10th, Rudy in 11th, Cazidle 12th, Legend in 13th, H-Eagle 14th, Marcados in 15th, Fabi 16th, Chiquita 17th, Fede in 18th, Louis in 19th, and Fasilio rounds up your order with the top 15 separated by 0.8 per second there. Really, really good.
Yeah, really good for a lot longer of a track than Austria. It's still nice to see 15 drivers within a second, but you could tell the 5 drivers at the back of the field really struggled in that session, especially Fusillo. We've come to expect some pretty decent midfield performances from him in Formula 1, but yeah, it just didn't really come together for him in the wet conditions in that one. He really struggled to find any sort of pace. And you've got to say another driver out of position is Lewis, of course, from last time out. Had an amazing run in Austria, but 19th on the grid this time around, and 1.4 seconds off pole. He is, quite a way off maybe where we're expecting him to be for this race as well. But I think there's probably 4 people at the very front that are looking like repeat offenders. I say repeat offenders, it's maybe not the right phrase, but repeat offenders at the front of qualifying, and that is of course Santeri, Asacombe, Denerco, and I believe the other one, if I'm not mistaken, was Tom. I have to redouble check that one. But they seem to be kind of the ones that performed well last time out in qualifying and have carried that over into this one as well. So Philip Wouters as well, pole sitter last time out, 4th on the grid, not as good of a qualifying, but still right up there. So yeah, we're maybe starting to see the first signs of the front runners for the majority of the season coming out in that qualifying session.
Yes, indeed. But before we go into the race, let's have a quick word from our title sponsor, GT Omega. Right then, so welcome back to PSGL PSF1. We are back for the race with myself and Aidan Carter taking you through the action, and we will go through your tyre strategy for this evening's race. We've got everybody that's opted for the hards apart from one person, which is Nemanja down in 6th place. Now that is not a surprise for those of you that watched PSGL F1 last week, where you saw Nemanja go for the soft tyres where everyone else went for the hards or the mediums. He's going for something completely different. He's not going for the softs. He's going for the mediums. I think he's probably listened to the other PSGL streams and thinking there could be a safety car. So if there's a safety car, he could be right in the mix. If not, he could be in a bit of trouble. But are you surprised that he went for that strategy?
No, considering what happened in Austria, I'm not surprised to see Nemanja as the only one gone for something different. I mean, again, if you're struggling in qualifying and you think you're lower down the grid, there's no point in just following everybody else. You've got to do something different to try and gain places, and that's maybe Nemaja's thinking. And of course, like you say, if there is an early safety car, that plays beautifully into Nemaja's hands in this race. And with it being a street circuit and a new street circuit to the calendar and a track like Miami, I think a safety car could definitely happen. I think it's more likely than it was in Austria. So yeah, Nemanja counting on an early safety car, but even if he doesn't, I don't think this strategy is as bad as the soft tyres last time out in Austria. He still has a good opportunity of a decent result tonight. And I think before we had the performance patch, he could have gone for a medium soft strategy. You could run higher pressures here and not overheat. I think with the update to the tyre pressures that we've just had, I think that strategy might be a stretch too far, but it's on the cards. Nemanja may try a medium soft strategy. That's just one thing to look out for.
Yes, and will we see people go for the ambitious hard to soft strategy as well, which is listed on one of my data as well. We could see people go for the brave and go on softs at the end, but we'll have to wait and see as we are about to get started, as the final few drivers are making their way to their grid slots by themselves as dictated in the game, doing the formation lap as the 5 red lights are coming on. Santeri on pole, Asacombe alongside his PSGL PSF1, and we are underway, and the camera's not very good, but who cares, as Santeri gets a very decent start compared to the rest of the field. Rowan has jumped Asacombe all the way down in towards turn number 1. Let's see how everyone else fares, as we've got the Aston Martin of Nemanja. Unsurprisingly, he's trying to get past a lot of the hard runners, already down into turn 2 and 3. We've got Tom was already dropped down into turn 7. We've got 3 wide as we head down towards turn 4 and 5. That's what we saw in real life, and we had a bit of a coming together there as well. Brock has dropped down to 9th, because Iddle's dropped down a few places as well, as we got a bit of contact at the back, as Brock's had a little bit of a spin, unfortunately. He's lost his front wing. Will we see a VSC? I don't know, but yeah, his front wing is pretty much almost off. In the left side is pretty much gone, or it might be his rearing, I don't know, but pretty much Santeri hasn't budged from the front. We got Denerco and Philip Wouters going side by side there. Denerco just about holds on to 5th place. We've got Mish and Legend going side by side as well, heading towards this little hairpin up into 11th place. A few movers and shakes at the moment, but Santeri judged that start perfectly, and so did Rowan, to be fair, up from 3rd to 2nd.
Yeah, Rowan's reactions to the light was actually really, really good. He reacted to the light almost perfectly, and that was why he got such a good start. Asakone there, not a great start off the line, and then just deciding, I think, in the middle of a two-wide section in turn 2 and 3, just completely cut the inside of turn 3. I'm sure we got a warning for it, but I think that put Wouters offline when Asakone rejoined, and Wouters has cost himself a couple of positions because of that. I wonder if that might be a steward's report coming Asakone's way, because that was a very blatant cut of the inside of turn number 3. I don't think it was the only one either. I think Nemaya was out there as well, trying to avoid maybe some of the aftermath of that. So that may be something that the stewards will be looking into a bit later on, as Kazizel, after not a great start, is now down the inside of Rudy at turn 1, makes it the outside of 2 and gets the move done and is back up into 9th position. Rudy in 10th is up 1 place, but Legend trying to make him go down another position back down to 11th, but not really an overtaking opportunity is turn number 4, so stays behind for the time being through the S section. Just looking at the front then, Santeri 1.1 seconds clear already from Rowan, and Asakone 1.1 seconds back. And interesting, Nemaya again on the softer of the compound tyres of those that are on the field at the moment, hasn't really got that much pace on those medium tyres. You would expect him to be cruising up to the back of Asakone, but that is not the case. And in fact, he's being dropped by Asakone as further down. Tom down the inside of Philip Wouters. Is he going to get the move done? You have to go around the outside of this long Vietnam-esque corner. Can't do it, so Tom stays behind in 7th for the time being. But Wouters, unlike in Austria, where he went forwards, is kind of going backwards at the start of this race.
Yeah, not very good for a race winner from last week, but it just goes to show that really we have different race winners at the start, and we should see the more consistent drivers towards the end of the season. We saw that last season as well, with the likes of Matthew Older as well, start to come to his own towards the end. He did struggle towards the final few rounds of the season, but he is now on PC, he's not on PlayStation anymore, and it's pretty much Dan Erko the favourite, but he's down in P5, so Dan Erko's got a lot to live up to at the moment, as we've got our first time penalty of the session of row, and that's going to help Asakome out as we head towards turn number 1. DRS is activated then for the drivers. There are 3 DRS zones around this circuit. There's a few that follow directly after each other. There's one on down the back straight towards turn 16 and 17, and there's one coming out of 9, 10 and 11, and of course we've got the start finish straight as well, will be your DRS straights for this evening. We've got one coming up right now, and we'll see which is the closest in just a minute, but with the DRS train growing and growing, it's going to make it even harder for these drivers to catch up and get past as well. And this is also one of those tracks where, like Austria, ERS management is absolutely awful, and you have to manage it to a T, and that's what Asakome is not doing. He's on 10% battery at the moment, so he's doing his best to see if he can get into top 2, but he can't at the moment. As Rowan did not get a penalty, he did get the fastest lap. I was a bit confused there, but I thought he had a penalty for the time being, but he did not. But anyway, as we head towards the crest here at the moment, Nemaya not being able to get past at the moment as well. Watching Legend and Rudy as well, still stuck in this DRS train. They're just not budging right now as well. It's going to take some miracle for people to get past. We're watching the TF10 boys. Maybe they can gain some slipstream, maybe to head towards turn 1 as well. We're seeing, I think, Mish struggling a little bit, and Markados is getting a little bit there. Markados seemed to struggle a few parts of the race last week. He's down in 13th at the moment. Not the way I would have wanted to see at the moment, but he's got a few points to prove to see where he deserved to be. He finished quite low in F3 last season, but he had a very good evaluation race, but he's not performing to his advantage here tonight. But it is a new track, and it's going to take getting used to. We'll see if he can get past Mish at this moment in time.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. I'm just looking at Nemaya at the moment in P4. On lap 3, all of a sudden the mediums have started to come into their own, so it took a couple of laps, but Nemaya now looking a little bit more confident on those medium compound tyres. The big worry here for Rowan and Asakome, they are both very, very low on ERS, and Santeri in the lead still has half his battery left, so Santeri cruising away at the front of the field without having to burn his ERS. This is already looking like a very dominant performance from Santeri. I don't want to jinx it. We did so many commentators' curses last time out, and Santeri was one of them. He was having a great race before he spun fairly early on. So hopefully Santeri doesn't do that again. I'm just keeping on board with Santeri, though. He is taking a lot of liberties with the track limits in that slow section, and it's paying off. Look at that. He's gained nearly 0.4 of a second in Rowan in that underpass section alone. That seems to be where Santeri's pace is, in the slow section bit in the middle of the lap. He is just so much more confident over those curves than anybody else, and that is just giving him a massive, massive lead at the moment. And yeah, Asakome now cruising up to the back of Rowan. It was a good start for Rowan, and I'm just wondering now whether Rowan was a little bit out of position on the grid because of the wet conditions. He looks like he's just now starting to struggle and maybe holding up the likes of Asakoma and Namaya, and definitely Denurko behind.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it, as well? Maybe when is it going to be the crossover point for these medium tyres to start to wear a little bit as well? And that's where we could start to see the likes of Denurko really come to his own as well. But what Asako right now, he was quite close, I would say, in the final sector when I was riding on board with him as well. So maybe he was more comfortable there on the straights a little bit there as well. But let's see how he gains in the corners in the X section. He's gained quite a bit of time. He's now about 6 tenths per second now between himself and Rowan, but I think maybe Rowan has picked up the pace a bit, seeing how Asakoma has performed under pressure as well. And bearing in mind, Rowan's best race last season was around Austria, I believe, in F2. He was in F2 in the game of tag of Bowden, and he's performing a lot better than last week. Obviously, we talked about drivers that we wanted to see improve, and I think Rowan was one of those drivers as well. Jensen is doing quite well as well in P8. He DNF'd last week as well, because it's all down in ninth as well. But obviously the drivers who did perform last week, Louis, all the way down in 17th position, so they got a point to prove at the moment. But let's see what Ascone can do with the DRS and the ERS. He's got plenty to use, but he's not going to use it as of yet. He's going to use it to his full advantage. I think he doesn't even need it. He could have got past it there if he wanted to with the ERS, but I think he was worried that Rowan would get the DRS heading towards turn number 1. Asakone got a bit squirmy there towards the final corner. So we'll see what we can manage as Chiquita goes down the inside of Fabi up into P15 as well. So they had their little ding-dong battle. Pretty clean so far from everybody so far. From the only one that's had a bit of an issue so far is Brock, but touch wood, I think there might be some issues later on. That's why I'm not going to count my chickens. I think this Fabi has got past Chiquita once again. So there is those two fighting there as well. But Asakome just keeping Rowan up there at the moment. So is Namaya as well. Denurko, Valser's just still not getting past as well. It's going to take someone to make a mistake, for someone just to say, you know what, I can get past as well. And I think Rowan is going to be the one in the most vulnerable position. But Asakome just not taking advantage of it at the moment. But I'm seeing some people are saving some ERS in sector 1 so they can use it in the final sector and probably towards sector 2, or maybe this section here.
Yeah, that's got to be the places, really, isn't it? I think I'm still keeping my eye on Namaya at the moment. He's got to be the cork in the bottle, with the only one being on the alternate strategy, but he's not really gone forward since the start, but he's not under major pressure yet from Denurko behind, so I think he's just sitting there at the moment waiting for something to happen. Santeri is so fast in that underpass section. He's now over 3 seconds clear at the front of the field. As further back, Namaya is now having to defend from Denurko, who's going to go all the way to the wall on the inside to try and get that inside line. That was very aggressive for lap 6 of the race. That was a pretty aggressive move down the inside, but Denurko, I think, is going to get the move done, gets the better exit out of the corner as well. So Denurko with an aggressive overtake, aggressive defense on Namaya. He left almost exactly a car's width, and Denurko managed to fit down the inside and take the position. So Denurko up into 4th place. Can he do anything now about Asakome and Rowan, who just seem to be holding each other up? Rowan's not particularly fast at the moment, but Asakome, I think, just is sitting behind, wanting to save some ERS back up. He doesn't want to make the overtake in fear of being re-overtaken, but by doing that, he is just falling further and further away from Santeri, who is just disappearing completely off into the distance. Looking further down as well, Misha, you mentioned earlier on, was struggling a little bit. I think he's continuing to struggle. He's just dropped out of DRS range to Legend, so I think we're starting to see the train now split up as the tyres wear and maybe the grip lessens in this part of the race.
Yeah, because it is a one-stop strategy here today. No two-stop as well, like we saw in real life, as we saw in Rudy and Cazizzo going side by side in this DRS straight as well. Cazizzo is going to try and go to the left-hand side here. If we go to the Vietnamese corner then as well, but we're seeing Rudy trying to get the switchback as we head towards the hairpin. I have to say, very well timed from Rudy to get the job done, and he was like, you know what, you can't get past me, Cazizzo. That P9 is mine, and I'm going for the higher positions as I can. So Rudy doing very well to try and get his first point of the season, and he's going to try and do what he can to get past Jensen. And I wonder if there's going to be any team orders from the Alpine garage, or are they going to be allowed to let them race? But since it's early on in the season, they're probably allowed to race as well. Let's hope we don't have any fights like we saw in Belgium in 2018, I believe, with Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon. It didn't go down too well, didn't it? And Ocon is in the Alpine currently at the moment, so let's see what these both can do. But I think they're just staying behind at the moment as well. Tom as well saved a bit more ERS as well, so he can start going on the attack soon as the mediums start to wear off from Namaya, and Tom could really pick up the pace a little bit as well, and that he got his teammate down in 20th who was expected to help him during this race, where he's going to be running on his own, Tom, just to try and get past the guys in front as well. I wonder which drivers are looking the most vulnerable at the moment. If I were you, it's Danek, who has less ERS. He wants to try and get past Azicombe ASAP as well, but Azicombe also has the ERS as well. You can definitely see who's been being patient with the ERS and who wants to go on the attack with the amount of ERS they've been saving. I can see Dan Aker is pushing a little bit more than everybody else and not being able to do so at the moment. But we've got another DRS straight coming up, so we can see Dan Aker getting the job done as well. But we've seen in places like Jeddah and a few other places as well where people didn't want to get past the DRS straight just so they can get DRS in the other corner. We've seen it in Austria with some drivers as well last week. I think we could see the same here as well, but we're riding on board with Azicombe at the moment. This is going to be an easy move from the AlphaTauri driver to slot himself into second place. Yes, it is. He finally gets the job done, or maybe he runs a little bit wide there as well, and we just talked about it as well. You don't really want to have no DRS coming towards the final corner, but I think Azicombe just about had the edge there and kept throwing other words there. So Azicombe up into P2, just what we were looking for. He had a bit of pressure, a little bit going wide, but he held his line just a little bit and was able to keep that position. So well done to Azicombe for getting the job done there. He was patient, he had enough ERS, and that's what rewarded in the position.
Yeah, he's got the move done, but I feel like he's left that a few laps too late. You can see him kind of pushing Rowan a few, especially turn one, on most laps, and I think with doing that, he's just let Santeri get away. I think Azicombe was visibly faster at that point in the race. Why he took so long to decide to go for the move on Rowan, I don't really know, but it's just let Santeri disappear off into the distance. Looking at the track map at the moment, it is everybody within one another, and then Brock at the back after his spin, and Santeri has just dropped this entire DRS tray, which is very unusual. You don't ever really see that, but he's just had such a stellar start to this race. You've got to say, though, out of the people in this DRS train, Danuko does look the fastest. Yes, he has used the most DRS, but he is crawling all over the back of the cars in front and was able to overtake Nemaya just a couple of laps ago whilst in the DRS train. So you've got to say maybe Danuko is one of the ones that has the most raw speed at the moment, just not really anywhere to go with it as it stands. So it's just sitting in fourth for the time being. And looking a bit further down, just seeing what's going on. Mishy's managed to get back within DRS range of Legend in front, but has burnt all of his DRS in doing so. So everybody from second down to 19th still has DRS at this point in the race. Some people are teetering on the edge of losing that DRS, but for the time being, they are just managing to hold on to it, just keeping an eye on anybody else. Tom looking pretty racy at the moment in the Mercedes. That'll be the next person to have a go at Nemaya, but 10 laps in, and Nemaya not really dropping off in medium pace. I think being in the DRS train is definitely helping, but it's not like we saw last time out in Austria where he just plummeted through the field very early on. He is holding his position in 5th place and doing a pretty solid job so far. Now it's just a case of, does he keep extending and pit for the softs around lap 18 and 19, or does he come in now or maybe a couple of laps time and go for the hards?
Potentially, yeah, as well. I think he's just braving a safety car. I think the only other driver that's also praying for a safety car is Brock as well. But you just got to get them moves done ASAP, really, because if there's no safety car, then really the hards to medium strategy is the fastest to be on at the moment, because the mediums are going to be a lot faster at the end. We saw with the likes of Austria as well, where pretty much almost everybody started on the hard compounded tyres, and it worked well for them. But bearing in mind there were some safety cars in the Austrian Grand Prix because it was the opening round of the season. No safety cars as of yet. But we can start to see Nemaya being a little bit more vulnerable to his mediums. I wonder if the crossover point is right now, as we're seeing Tom saving his ERS. He's using his overtake button right now, and he is just saving a little bit more, he's saying. He's not wanting to get past down this back straight. He wants to get past in the next DRS straight as well, because he could be vulnerable to Valter's behind very soon as well. Let's see what Valter's ERS. He's got less ERS as well, so he may be on the attack soon. So if Tom doesn't get a move on, watch out for Valter's in his mirrors. Again, Tom is just being a little bit patient until Nemaya's tyres start to die. I think that's what he's doing at the moment. If it was anybody else, I think he would have gone for a push very, very soon, as Carlos is out of the race. Now this could be the signs that Nemaya is looking for, and I think we've got a full course yellow, and I need the board to confirm it. Yes, we've got a full course yellow. This is looking good for Nemaya at the moment. The early safety car that he was hoping for has worked wonders, and to be honest, the ideal pit stop that you got to pit onto the hards is lap 13, so that's 2 laps shorter than he would have liked, but still that is pretty decent. He is going to have a free pit stop pretty much as well, but I wonder what it's going to be for the medium runners, for the higher runners. Realistically, the mediums can get to the end, as Ascombe's got a drive-through penalty for speeding under safety car. That's not good, but the mediums could realistically get to the end, but the hard's been the more durable tyre as well. I would say everyone's going to come in anyway, but if I had someone that could be back in this race, that could be Lemire as well. This is just what he needed.
Yeah, just what he needed, of course. I think everybody else is going to have to pit for the medium compound tyre. They will fire off a bit better than the hards will for Lemire, but it's going to be a bit of a question mark as to whether they get to the end. They should, on percentage where they should get to the end of the race, the mediums from here, but whether they'll have any sort of pace at the end of the race is another question. So yeah, Lemire may struggle a little bit at the early phase of the safety car restart, but towards the end he could be a real threat in this race. So yeah, this has played nicely for Lemire. He was probably hoping that the safety car actually came about 5 or 6 up earlier, as Denurko's dropped it under the safety car. He's reset to track coming out of the hairpin, but he's spun the car. Now down to 8th position is the Ferrari drivers, so it's all falling apart for drivers in front. And now Denurko trying to overtake, and does overtake Jensen on the way into the pit lane. So regains a place by overtaking Jensen in the pit lane. I think he was within the white lines, but either way, Denurko, a bit of a rookie error there from one of the championship frontrunners from last season, spinning out of 4th place. He'll drop down to, I believe, about 7th in the order now. Yeah, it will be 7th position, just back ahead of Jensen. So again, it's opening up for Lemire, isn't it? He's on the hards, he's now up to 4th, and of course Ascombe's got a drive-through penalty to serve the second we go green, so that will put Lemire in 3rd position on those hard compound tyres. If he can hold position and then gain pace towards the end, he has got potentially a clean run at Santeri and Rowan in front. I think the one person that's annoyed by this safety car is probably Santeri. He had such a comfortable lead before that safety car came out that I don't think he was really under any threat, no matter what happened strategy-wise or anything like that. Santeri had a 4.5 second lead. Nobody looked on his pace, but now that the safety car's come out, that gap has been completely wiped out. So now he's got to try and build that gap once again. But is it worth burning out the mediums early on to try and build the gap and suffering at the end, or does he just sit at the front of the train and hope that he's got enough straight line speed to hold on to the lead?
It's a very tough decision as well, because you've got to defend from the cars behind as well, and you got to save at the same time. So maybe the first few laps is where you push, and then you would save after that, once you know you've got a little bit of a gap behind as well. But it does depend on the driver as well. Obviously, their tyre management is different. Some people are a lot better, and then there's some people in this tier that run on a wheel, and there's some people that run on a pad. And we all know the tradition that running on a pad on this game, tyre management wise, is a lot harder than on the wheel as well, because there are certain parts of the tyres that can wear a lot quicker than the wheel can as well. So maybe if you're on the wheel, maybe you could stretch out a little bit longer, push a little bit longer and stretch that gap, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe Lemire could make sure he can push later on as well, as safety car is not in yet, as I'm a bit surprised about that, because the gap is a little bit, well, pretty much everyone has caught up to the safety car. So that's going to be very, very annoying for some of the drivers that want to get going straight away. But we will run through your order then, as we're approaching half race distance for the Miami Grand Prix. Thank you to those of you that are tuned in. We are sponsored by GT Omega, who are our title sponsor, and you can get 5% off GT Omega products by clicking on the link in the description. We're also partnered by Grid Rival as well, where you can join their F1 2022 Fantasy League as well, and you could get your predictions in as well. The next race will be in 4 weeks' time, of course, because they're on their summer break. But Santeri is leading in P1. Ascombe is in P2. Not for long, though. This is going to be a huge, huge disadvantage for Ascombe, because he's got a drive-through. He can't serve it right now. He has to wait until after the safety car restart to do so. So he's going to drop to the very back of the field. Rowan in P3. Lemire, obviously the only one who started on the mediums, he pitted onto the hards. He could get to the end quite comfortably. Tom in 5th. He has played this race to perfection at the moment as well. Valted, I think, could have been up higher. He didn't sit for the moment. Denurko in 7th. Jensen 8th. Cazidlo in 9th. And as it stands, those will be the top 10 that score points, with Legend in 10th position. And then the ones who will need to work their way up to get points tonight will be Mish, Rudy, Fabi, Eagle, Chiquita, Louis. Definitely Louis as well, after scoring some decent points last week. Fasilio, Fede and Brock. And also we had Mark that has retired from this Grand Prix, that has caused that early safety car as well. Let us know your predictions in the chat. I know you think it's going to do well with this safety car as well. But we will see what happens. As I believe we are about to go green. Let's see what Santeri could do within this restart.
Yeah, let's see what he can do. Can he rebuild that gap once again? I think Asicombe coming into the pit lane could help Santeri build the gap. It will mean Rowan's a bit further back from the McLaren driver. And yeah, that's taken Asicombe completely out of the running now, unless we get utter carnage in the latter stages of this race. But with it being PSGL F1, I don't expect that to happen. So now it's just a case of when does Santeri go, but he's backing them right up. He's going very slowly, so I'd expect that he's going to go fairly early.
Yep, he's holding the field up quite early at the moment, and as you were saying, is he going to accelerate right now? And as soon as you accelerate, of course, you can't slow down. That is a crucial factor at the moment, so we will see. Santeri, he doesn't have to worry about Asicombe. He's got to drive through. He's got to worry for the likes of Rowan and Namaya. And look at that. He's already pulling away. Like he's saying, Santeri's pace. He's on fire at the moment. Look at that. Almost a second separating the rest of the field. That is absolutely amazing at this moment in time. Rowan had a good restart as well. I think everyone has stayed exactly where they are. No one has lost dangerously apart from Fede, who's been overtaken by Brock on the restart. Brock is up into P18 at the moment as well. And we could start to see people really start to pull away from each other, but Santeri just continuing his dominance that we're seeing in the early part of the race. So maybe he's deciding that he wants to push. Right now we're seeing Tom and Namaya having a little bit of a ding-dong battle as we head towards this back straight, as we do have a time penalty from Tom. I think he's lagging a bit on my screen. I hope it's not my internet that's causing a bit of trouble at the moment, but as you can see, as we head towards the Vietnamese corner, Tom gets past Namaya up into fourth place. I wondered if Namaya's picking up some sort of damage. We'll have to wait and see, but Tom does have 3-second time penalty looming as well, so he's got a lot of work to do there. But apart from those little squabbles as well, no one has made any moves at the moment. Santeri has been the one that's been holding the fort at the moment. He's been leading by quite some way, pretty much by a full second, because Asicombe will have to come in soon to serve his drive-through.
Yeah, and that would put Rowan 1.5 seconds back, so Santeri here sitting really comfortably as Philip Wouters down the inside of Namaya at turn 17 gets the move done. I think that's unsurprising with Namaya being on the hard compound tyres. Right now he's not going to have the pace. He's just got to wait to the end and not lose too many positions in these early phases of the restart. I think Tom will be kicking himself because Tom's got quite a lot of raw speed at the moment, but that time penalty is really going to cost him in this race, especially with everybody being so close. So yeah, Tom, with on the podium positions at the moment, is going to drop down the field quite considerably, potentially close to out of the points if it were to finish now. So yeah, really costly error there from the Mercedes driver in the early phases of that safety car restart. Yukita and Lou, by the way, I was on board. They were trying to race into that underpass section. It didn't work, and neither of them made the chicane, which is why both of them have ended up picking up a penalty. So that is why they are now further down the field, 14th and 15th with a time penalty. So a bit of a fall from grace, unfortunately, for Louis in this race from last time out, as Tom now gets up into second place, past Rowan and up into second position in the Mercedes. But look at that, Santeri already 1.8 seconds up the road at the front of this field. And Danuka's got through on Namaya as well. Namaya just continues to fall down the field on those hards, but so far it's not been too terrible for the Aston Martin driver. Still P6 on the hard compound tyres that should get better as this stint goes on. He's just got to make sure he doesn't get himself into trouble.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine towards the end of the race. I think we know that the hards are going to struggle more with the mediums at the early phase, but I think once it gets towards lap 27, 28, Namaya is really going to be faster than a lot of these guys, and that is really where he can start to get the overtakes done. If he doesn't get the overtakes done then that is where he feels like he's going to be in a little bit of trouble compared to everybody else. DRS will be activated then for the second time this race. And look at the gap that Santeri is pulling on at the moment. We're seeing Namaya and Jensen having a bit of a battle towards turn number one. You can see the memes are the fastest tyre at the moment. And I don't think Namaya is putting up a fight against Jensen there. Jensen having a lot of a better race compared to last week with the DNF. Jensen up into 6th place right now. And this could be redemption for the Alpine team, because the Alpine team didn't really score many points. Obviously, reserve drivers, they don't score for the Constructors Championship. I think both Alpines retired last week. I think with Kazizel filling in for Rudy last week. So could this be Alpine's first lot of points in PSGL PSF1? We'll have to wait and see. It looks like we got the DRS, I think, from Kazizel and Namaya. Namaya seems to be dropping down the field, it seems, by quite a lot. And I think it's a lot more harder than he's planning to be at the moment. So maybe the strategy may not pay off. But again, watch towards the end as Kazizel is now up into 7th place. Another driver who didn't perform well last week and is performing well this week. It's nice to see a change in the order at the moment as to who's doing well and who is not, because we may see a second different race winner. We may see 3 different people on the podium.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like that at the moment. Wouters, with that penalty for Tom, is clinging on to that third step on the podium as it stands, so he'd be the only repeat podium sitter. But here comes Denurko trying to take that away from him down the inside, trying to recover from that spin under the safety car, gets down the inside and is up into 4th place. But I think with that reset to track as well, that could be a penalty looming over Denurko's head, so it's not really out of the question that Denurko could lose a few places in this race. Gets the fastest lap on that lap as well, but he'll have a steward's report hanging over his head at this point in proceedings, which he will not want whatsoever. Nemanja now down to 9th behind Legend. He's nearly out of the top 10 actually, so while it wasn't looking too bad a couple of laps ago, he's just continuing to fall at the moment. They just don't look that good, these hard compound tyres. Of course, with him putting them on in the middle point of the race, he has to go through a tyre warm-up phase on those hard compound tyres, and doing a tyre warm-up phase under a safety car is nigh on impossible on a set of hard compound tyres. If you start on the hards, you don't have to go through that tyre warm-up phase, because they start on relatively high temperatures at the moment, at least in this game. So yeah, that's why Nemanja is struggling so much in comparison to what the hard runners were doing earlier on in this race. Mitchie will be next to have a go at the Aston Martin down the inside, and again I think Nemanja just choosing not to fight these ones. He's going to wait for later on in the race. Mitchie then up into 9th. Nemanja now down into the last points paying position. Rudy will be the next one to have a go at Nemanja if they can get there. So yeah, he continues to fall, but further up the field, just as there's a new challenger at the front of this train, nobody still has an answer for Santeri. 4 laps now after the safety car has come in, and Santeri has almost rebuilt that entire lead that he had before the safety car. In fact, Santeri looked stronger on the mediums than he did on the hards at the start. The gap has grown even bigger at a faster rate of knots after the safety car restart. So I feel like we need to make an F0 just for Santeri at this point, because he is completely obliterating the field at the moment.
I think there's been a few races on this game, including the social races, where there's some where he has performed well, like Austria, and a few of the social races in PSGL and in other leagues. But there's some races like this where he's completely dominating. We thought he was going to be the one who's struggling on the restart, but he seemed to be taking it like ducks to water, like he said, and pretty much the gap is like it was before the safety car came out as well. So could we see his first ever win? I think this will be his first ever win in the top tier. Don't forget, Santeri joined midway through F1 last season. He was in F2 for the first few races of last season. He finished 5th in PSGL F1, which shows how well he adapted to the top tier last season, scoring points consistently as well, and he could be a championship contender later on. But here we go, we got a battle for P2. Rowan couldn't get past Tom, unfortunately, down the inside. And I think Denurko didn't have a challenge either as well. And we do have a shout out to Carter Lundy, by the way, who donated almost $3 Canadian there, saying go on Santeri. So he's rooting for Santeri there as well, so thank you there. All of that money will go towards supporting the league and make the league even better. And we're on a decent amount of subscribers already, so if you haven't already, make sure you leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification as well. We stream pretty much on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays and Mondays every week. Of course, we've got the top tier on PC on Wednesday night, as we got Mish down the inside of Rudy. Mish was going to go down the inside of Rudy, but Rudy actually got the move back in towards the final corner, so Rudy's up into 9th place as well. Could get a double points scoring for Alpine as it stands. I think we're going to say the same for Haas and for McLaren as well. McLaren having a good race as well, with Santeri leading and Cazizzo in P7. Louis, I believe, back up to P15, but with his time penalty, he could drop way down the field already at the moment as well. And I think with a few people with time penalties, it's really going to kill him. Ascombe's time penalty, well, it doesn't seem to affect him too much, because he's still catching up to that DRS train. So imagine what he would have been if he didn't have that drive-through. Maybe he would have challenged the likes of Tom and Rowan. We'll have to wait and see. But with him down in 19th place, we would never know. But not that long. Oh, is there Tom? Well, he's made a big mistake, but Denurko has made a brilliant move into the hairpin now. He's got past 2 cars. So I wonder what happened to Rowan and Tom there for a second. He caught me unawares for a little bit there, but Denurko was, I believe, in 4th place, and he's all the way up into 2nd. And could this be the man that challenges Santeri for the race win? This is the move that we were looking for. He reminds me of Charles Leclerc's move with George Russell in Hungary yesterday. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was a lovely move. I think he maybe caught Rowan a bit napping there. I think Rowan was trying to get past without using much GRS, and Dinerco just said, you know what, I'll use what reserve I have, and blitz past the pair of them. So lovely move from Dinerco, but he's got a 5-second gap to try and close in on Santeri. That is, I think, nigh on impossible unless Santeri makes a mistake at this point in the race. So yeah, it's going to be really difficult from now on for Dinerco to make any impression. And of course, like I mentioned earlier on, he still potentially has a steward's report hanging over his head. So I think this is him just trying to gain as many places as he can in just in case of that, as Tom's made a bit of a mistake through turn number 2, and that's put Philip Wouters on the back of the Mercedes. No real move done there, as there's a yellow flag further back. That is for Louis and Chiquita, I think, that have gone round together. Yeah, Chiquita and Louis maybe contact in turn 2.
Kazizel!
They've both gone round, and now Kazizel's gone round a few corners later. So, well, lap 20 is where it's all kicked off. We've had 2 spinners at turn 2, and now we've had Kazizel drop down to 13th after a spin for himself. Seeing if Wouters is close enough to Tom to make a move. No, not this time around, not quite close enough. But those couple of spins have now put Fabi into the top 10, and Amaya's back up to 11th on those hard compound tyres. So it's starting to level out a bit now for Namaya, but we're almost halfway through this final stint, and Namaya's not really started to make any impression on the medium runners. So I fear that Namaya here, with this strategy, is just going to kind of get stuck in either 11th or 12th on these hard compound tyres unless more people spin.
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be too little too late for the Aston Martin driver, unfortunately. He went very bold with the strategy. He thinks the tyres were going to be more prominent towards the end of the race, but I think he would have wanted the safety car to be a lot earlier than everyone else. And as we can see, Fabi is trying to go the right hand side of Mish, but again, Mish is going to try and do the same tactic as he did earlier on, but to no avail. This time Fabi's learned from his mistake as well, but we're seeing Mish is going to get a little bit of slipstream as he heads towards turn number 1. No chance at the moment. Both of them run out of unfortunately. They're both our mistake. So Fabi moves up to 9th, Mish down into 10th, but he's just going to be in the points. We'll keep an eye on Namaya as well to see if he can close up to Mish, to start to see whether the mediums are starting to run out a bit of tyre life, or will it be absolutely fine for Namaya as well. I think at this stage he'll definitely be out of the points, which is a bit unfortunate, but there's still a long way of the season to go. But it's probably the shortest season we've had in a long while. We've seen Chiquita go into the pits. He's gone for a set of soft tyres. Well, he's out of the points. He's got nothing to lose. He probably wants to try and get past his lap, so no one else in the top 10 would get it, just so he can have a little bit of glory at the moment. Santeri is leading up front still, 5.4 seconds, which I have to say is absolutely mad and crazy at the moment. He's just a superstar. He was a man who I spoke to earlier on in the BSR chat, saying he seems to be struggling with Miami, but he kind of likes the handling model on this game, so maybe with an extra week of getting used to the handling model, he finds the game a lot better, because of course last week we pretty much, the drivers were given a handling model on the day, like a few hours notice. So I think that's what helps Santeri, having that extra week to do a bit of practice and to get used to the track and the handling model. And I think that's helped him definitely get used to it as well. But here we go, here comes Rowan in towards turn number 1. He can't get past Dinerco as well. I think everyone is now trying to save ERS effectively on this final stint of the Grand Prix, which I think is going to get very tense. And I have to say, I was expecting to be a lot more carnage, but apart from a few spinners, I think this tier has been very, very clean. To be honest, it's been generally very clean in this tier overall this season so far, which just goes to show how high quality these drivers are, and the racecraft too, which shows that anything can happen with these guys as well. As that anything can happen as well. So Namaya's got a 3-second time penalty, unfortunately, as well. But lap 22-29, Santeri still leads. I won't be surprised if he gets the gap up to 6 seconds.
Yeah, this is just a race for second, really, at the moment, isn't it? Nobody is anywhere near Santeri, as Mitchie down the inside of Fabi for P9 gets that position back off the Red Bull then, but they are just continuing to drop from this battle for second position. So 2nd through 8th are all tight together, and then Mitchie and Fabi kind of in their own battle at the moment for the final 2 points positions as it stands. They're not really under any threat behind Namaya now with that time penalty, and H. Eagle hasn't really shown much pace so far in the race, has struggled just a little bit to find a rhythm. So yeah, they're fairly battling over the final 2 spots in this race. Tom up behind Rowan, thinking about a move, but not quite close enough. It seems to be, was Tom into the back of Rowan actually at turn 17, gets the Haas really unsettled, and then Tom, in his eagerness to try and get on the power to overtake, loses the rear of the car. Does that put Philip Wouters close enough to have a move on the Mercedes down towards turn 1? He's just fading to the inside, trying to make Tom have a mistake, but not quite close enough, so they both get away with it that time around. But Tom and Rowan just, really struggling at this point in the race. Don't really seem to have a lot of grip. But I was kind of expecting, once Danerco took that P2 position, I was expecting the gap between him and Santeri to at least level out. I wasn't expecting maybe him to close in, but maybe just to stay stagnant. But even with Danerco, one of the favourites for the championship last season, coming into second position, Santeri just continues to drive off into the distance. It's absolutely bizarre to see a driver at the front of a DRS train just completely drop the DRS train twice in a race on 2 separate occasions on 2 different compounds of tyres against 4 different drivers that have had a go at being in second position, and none of them have been able to even level the gap between himself and Santeri, let alone bring it down. So yeah, this is just an absolute dominant performance for Santeri. I might have to have my own conversation with him after this race to find out what his secret is around this track, because it is clearly madness, especially, again, I've reiterated for the 3rd time in this race, but it is that underpass section. There you go, gains 0.3 of a second on Danerco just in those few corners, and the gap is now over 6 seconds. So Santeri could get 2 time penalties in these last 6 laps and still come away with a race victory. As here comes Tom on Rowan once again, trying to get the move done down towards 17. Will go around the outside this time around, but Rowan late on the brakes has the better line for the corner. It's pretty difficult to go around the outside of 17. So Tom backs out once again, and Rowan holds that 3rd place.
Yes, there we go. So I think this could be tense towards the end, because I think Tom would want to get past to make sure he can get rid of the deficit with the penalty, because he's got to be, I think, within 3 seconds of the cars behind them to make sure he can keep that position. But he's in a lot of danger of losing not just one position, but I think quite a few positions as well, with Valtteri, Jensen and Legend saying. But one question I would like to ask Santeri at the end of this race is, what did he eat today? Did he eat porridge or something like Valtteri Bottas did a few years ago, I think, in around Austria? I don't know. I would like to know what he's eaten and today, and probably he would like to repeat himself with the food he ate this week into next week as well in Belgium. That would be quite good. But yeah, we will cross that bridge once we get to the podium interviews, which we'll hopefully have tonight. Hopefully we'll have people speaking to us, of course. We're approaching towards the end of the race. Those mediums could just about make it to the end, but they will be on the cusp of puncher territory, whereas the hards can get to the end. But Lemire, A, has got that time penalty, and B, is a little bit too further back. So the only way he can go back into this race is, of course, another safety car. And as I was saying, we thought that Santeri was going to get into 6 seconds, and he just broke into that 6-second window. My, oh my. So unless he has a huge bottle, there's no way he's going to lose this race at the moment. But if he does, this is the battle that we're going to watch out for. The likes of Danerco, Rowan and Tom for P2. This is a battle for the best of the rest at the moment, as Brock is having a nice comeback, I have to say, from the back of the grid. This safety car has definitely helped him, as he's passed, I believe, Lemire, and he's going to chase down H. Eagle. Meanwhile, Jensen is having a battle with Valtteri and Legend there down the inside as well. We're seeing Valtteri getting a bit squirmy on exit there as well. He could have taken advantage of Jensen, but to no avail, unfortunately, as we head towards the Essex section, towards the Harbour section as well, which the drivers like to race near, of course. Now heading towards the S section as well. This is where we get to see some people taking slightly different lines to gain a little bit of speed, a little bit of traction. No assist, remember, in this tier, so they'll be using no traction at all. And I'm seeing that Valtteri was using all his DRS, so he had to save a lot going down this back straight when you're having the DRS to full effect as well. So I think Valtteri will probably wait until the final few laps of this Grand Prix to do anything. I think same with Jensen and same with Tom as well. So I think that will give Rowan and Danerco a little bit of a sigh of relief as well. Battle for the final point is still H. Eagle, Fabi, and maybe Brock as well. If Brock gets past H. Eagle ASAP, maybe Brock could be on for a point after all. Don't forget he started last.
Yeah, it was down at the back, wasn't he, after an early spin as well. So Brock is working his way back through the field quite nicely. And like you say, with Michi and Fabi continuing to fight over ninth, there is an opportunity there for Brock to come in and steal a point away from one or the two of those drivers. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on Brock in these last stages of this race. I was actually on board with Philip Wouters there in that battle with Jensen. I don't know if it was a genuine mistake and he outbroke himself, or whether it was an overtaking attempt. Either way, he dived down the inside of Tom at turn number 17 and just kind of drove clean into the side of the Mercedes, backed out of the corner to give Tom the position. As I speak of Tom, Tom's dropped the car. Tom has spun the car through turn 3. He's hit the wall with his rear wing. I don't know if that's going to be rear wing damage, but just on his own, on traction, has dropped the Mercedes. What was looking like such a strong race for Tom. First the penalty, and now just an unforced error all on his own in turn 3, and that is him now completely out of the running. What that does do is now free up Jensen to have a clean run at Rowan, maybe for the final spot on the podium. So Jensen, another one, a pretty decent race, hasn't really shined, hasn't done anything too majorly dramatic in this race, but has systematically picked off drivers one by one as they've made little mistakes or if they really benefited from the pit stops. Of course, Jensen was at the head of one of the double, was towards the back of the top 10, obviously, at the start of the safety car restart, and is now running in 4th. So, yeah, systematically picking off the drivers one by one, and now has a shot at potential podium off the back of Rowan. He is dropped out of DRS range, but Rowan is completely out of ERS, so that is potentially an opportunity for Jensen to get his first podium of the season.
These drivers have had a lot more time to practice, and I just realised I had my mic on mute. I do apologise. I was talking to myself for like 20 seconds and realised I was speaking to no one at the moment. But yeah, it will be good to have Jensen redeem himself after last week, because he didn't DNF at all. Well, he DNF'd last week actually, and it will be good to not DNF. Meanwhile, H Eagle battle for the point. Well, he's not going to get any points at the moment, as he just spun similarly to what we saw Tom earlier on as well, which will be a little bit of a shame at the moment, but looks like he's on for 3rd. He's within, I think, almost DRS range of Rowan, Danerco and Santeri. Well, not Santeri, because Santeri's leading this race, but about for 2nd place. Could still be on. He could be 2nd actually if Rowan and Danerco have a little bit of a squabble, a little bit of an accident as well. But oh, that's not what you want to do, Jensen, as he had a little bit of a squirm there on exit past the crest, and he's lost about 5/10 there, and he could lose P4 out of all of that to Wouters. So Wouters could go back in this race.
Yeah, he's going down the inside at turn 17. Late on the brakes, he's going to force the issue down the inside, going to make Jensen go deep into the corner. Can he get the run on the exit? Not quite, but again, Jensen a little bit squirmy on traction. Wondering if those mediums are starting to go off now for Jensen's Alpine. And look at that, Wouters just cuts underneath on the inside of turn 19. Breezes down the inside, got another yellow flag further back. That is for Tom. I think he was spun again towards the back of the field. So Tom's tyres are definitely finished at this point of the race. We're starting to see these mediums completely die off at the end of the race. Lewis now gone for a spin as well. So yeah, the mediums have almost like hit a cliff for a lot of these drivers, and they're just all over the place now. Wouters then up into 4th position. Tom then into the pits. That's a retirement in the pit lane. Not really surprised by that one. Louis follows him in and retires as well. Was now Philip Wouters has a bit of a twitch coming onto the back straight. That's going to allow Jensen to have a run back on the Alfa Romeo down the back straight. And Legend here is licking his lips. He's caught these two very quickly with the mistakes they've been making. And could we get a Haas 3-4 in this race potentially as they go down towards the end of the straight? Jensen gets the move done. Legend's going to try and sneak around the outside here of Philip Wouters. Will be the inside for the next corner. That is a lovely opportunistic overtake from Legend. Philip Wouters kind of dawdling on the inside of the corner, and Legend just drove clean around the outside of the Alfa Romeo and up into 5th place. Lovely move from the Haas driver, and yeah, it is looking like a very decent race for Haas today.
Yep, it looks like it's going to be double points for the Haas team and the Alpine team as well, and the Ferraris as well. So for those 3 teams, it's going to be very impressive indeed. And looks like Legend is going to go for a move once again. Nobody thinks better of it as we are about to start the final lap of this Miami Grand Prix. And we said that it could get very, very tense towards the end. And my, oh my, it does as well. As we're seeing Jensen holding on for dear life at the moment to 4th place. It's allowing Rowan and Danerco to have a little bit of a breathing space. Don't count them out as well. We've got Rudy in this as well, who is in the back of this DRS train. Don't count him out as well. As let's ride on board with Rudy, who's got a perfect box of his seat for this as well. Azarcombe has retired from this Grand Prix. He's retired from the pit lane. I think most of the retirements, apart from Mark, has been from the pit lane, which is a bit of a shame. But we lost 4 drivers, but we head towards this DRS straight for the final time. We will see if anyone could take advantage. I think the closer at the moment is Rudy on Wouters. We'll see if Wouters could get closer on Legend. I think if Wouters makes a mistake, Rudy could start to pounce. So we'll go past the Vietnam corner then. Can any of them budge for a move? No, I think they would rather stay in the position they were in and rather than risk an accident. But they're racers. They want to go for position at the end of the day, and they want to score as many positions as they can, because if they lose points here, that could be the defining moment of their championship. But let's ride on board with Santeri. There's a battle going on in the background as well, but this is a man who pretty much led qualifying from the start, never looked back. He took pole, he pretty much led the restart to perfection. He wins in Miami, his first win of the season. Dan Urko takes P2, another podium. Well done to him. I believe he'll take the lead of the championship after tonight. Rowan in P3, who will take P4 is Legend just on the line. Jensen just on the line, and it'll be Legend in 5th, Valter 6th, Rudy with another impressive performance in 7th, a great result for the Alpine drivers as well, 4th and 7th for Haas, 3rd and 5th, Fabi in 8th, I believe his first points of the season, Misha in 9th, and Brock from last to 10th gets the final point, and I have to say that is a good performance if I say so myself. I'm sure he would have wanted higher because he's got higher in the past in PSGL F1, but he will take that after having a poor qualifying session around the track that he potentially doesn't like. But crucial moment for Dan Urko in the championship, but crucial moment for Santeri to get his championship started, because he got no points last week, but he started off his season properly here at Miami.
Yeah, what a way to bounce back. What a way to bounce back for Santeri. He had such a great start to the race in Austria, but then spun multiple times and then just retired out of pure frustration, I believe. And it was a horror show of a race, considering how strong of an end to the season he had last time out. But that is probably one of the most dominant races we've seen in a while. I think that is a Matthew Older level performance from Santeri there. That kind of domination where nobody came anywhere near close to matching his pace. Nobody at any point in that race could ever close in. The gap was always growing throughout that race. Santeri just looked completely imperious, and even with a 5-second lead, even when he didn't need to push, he was still pulling away. So that is very ominous for the McLaren driver to have such a dominant performance here in Miami. Can he continue it on next time at Spa? We'll wait and see. That is a very different track, but either way, yeah, what a performance for Santeri. Daneco, again, a good result, as you would expect, but of course, it's got that penalty potentially looming over his head after that reset to track under the safety car. And Rowan, first podium of the season, solid result. Didn't have the pace maybe of some of the drivers around, but as other drivers around him faltered, he managed to keep it on the road and pick up the solid podium finish.
Yes, indeed. So we will go through your order then for the Miami Grand Prix. So we have got Santeri that won by quite some margin. Not quite the fastest lap, but he got the pole and the win. Excellent stuff. I think just like last week as well, where Valter's got pole and the win. So I think last season I've commentated on many races where the person who got on pole didn't get the win. So maybe it's a change in fortune in F1 this season. Dan Urko P2, Rowan P3, Jensen P4, Legend P5, Valters P6, Rudy P7, Fabi in P number 8, then we got Mish in P9, Brock in P10, your point, and then your final finishers are Kazidal, Fede, Namaya, H Eagle, Vasilio, Chiquita. Chiquita actually got the fastest lap there on the soft, so fair play to them. And your retirements are for them: Asacombe, Louis and Tom. I think they all retired in the pit lane, and Mark brought out the early safety car to begin with. So what a race. What a race. Some drivers obviously needed to improve a bit more. I think the likes of Louis, for example, scored very well in Austria, didn't score very well here, but there was people, the likes of Brock, Rudy, Jensen, who maybe either wasn't here last week or didn't score well last week, scored brilliantly as well. And I have to say, Mr. Consistent Dan Urko, is showing why obviously he was a championship contender last season. So we will see what he can do next week when we head to Belgium. Can he get a third podium on the bounce? Well, we'll find out when we head to this track in a week's time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see definitely what Daneco can do, and this is how you put a championship run together, isn't it? When you're not winning, you're still picking up really, really good results, and that is what Daneco has done in the first two races of the season. Not been the fastest, but has picked up really solid top 5 results in both races. So yeah, good start to the season for Daneco, even if he's not got that first win of the season as of yet. And there's a lot of drivers with a lot of potential in this race that didn't get the result that they wanted or probably deserved. You've got to say both Mercedes had good pace. I think Brock, maybe not by fault of his own. We don't really know what happened on lap 1 to him, but was at the back of the field for the first half of that race. Recovered to 10th, but there could have been more in it for the Mercedes driver. Likewise for Tom as well. Tom picked up the penalty, but also spun as well. So spun out of points condition there for Tom. So not a great race for really either of the Mercedes drivers, unfortunately. And of course, Asacombe, front runner, qualified on the front row, cut the corner at turn 2 at the start of the race, lost positions, and then ultimately that drive-through penalty under the safety car, completely ruining his race. So again, drivers who have got a lot of pace and a lot of potential not picking up the results early on, and that can really put you off when it comes to a championship rally. You can kind of lose focus and get a bit desperate trying to make up the points that you've lost in the early phases. So that's already putting them on the back foot, whereas you've got other people who maybe don't quite have the outright pace to win, who are picking up solid points results. People like Rowan, people like Jensen as well, picking up solid results when other people fail. That is exactly what they need to do to build up a good championship campaign. Even if they're not going for the outright title, great way for them to pick up points and maybe get a solid top 10 result in the standings.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we can get the drivers in for an interview, because we didn't have anyone in the interview room as well. Unfortunately, we won't be able to hear from our race winner. He's unable to go into the interview room, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. But we will be able to hear hopefully from the man who finished in P3 at the moment. So we'll see if we can get Rowan in in a second as well. But whilst we wait for Bowen, who would you say is your driver of the day?
I hate to be boring, but I've got to go for Santeri, haven't you? I think it's you could put your money on someone else who's maybe come up from the back of the field or midway through the field and had a good race. Jensen, one of those that had a good race. Rowan as well, maybe outperforming, maybe his expectations, had a good race, but Santeri was just so dominant in that race. No one came anywhere near close. He was in a league of his own. I've got to give it to Santeri. I think there's no other choice.
Yeah, I think I would never give it to someone that got the win very, very close, but I would have to give it to Santeri as well because of how sheer dominance he got. No one would get 6 second dominant. It'll be crazy. I think the last person that did that was Matthew Older and Isma last season. So I think he's already matched what the likes of those drivers can do as well. So maybe he could be the one that challenges Donaco for the championship, or maybe even lead the championship going into next week as well. I think other drivers who I think needs to perform, I think Chiquita as well didn't have a good race. I think some drivers could have said they would have wanted more. But next week, Belgium, completely different circuit to Miami. One of my favourites to commentate on this game. Another track where it has a lot of rain, which hopefully does not happen. Hopefully we'll have more than 2 laps of racing. But you got obviously heading into El Source, Al Rouge as well, which is changed in real life to make it more safe, but obviously not changed on the game. Obviously heading towards their com as well. We can see people go down the inside there. The corner no aim as well, put on. There's plenty of corners that people can go for moves, and it just makes it an exciting track to go racing on, and I'm looking forward to that next week.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it as well. It's, like you say, completely different to Miami, completely different to Austria as well. I'd say it probably races similar to Austria in a sense that you're likely to see DRS trains at Spa. There's a lot of, not a lot of corners, a lot of fast corners, a lot of long straights as well, so it can be fairly easy to keep in DRS range. But like you say, weather could definitely play a part in Spa. If it wasn't already likely in Austria or likely in Miami, it's going to be potentially, we could probably nail on that weather could have some sort of effect at Spa. That is just how Spa works, isn't it? So that would be very, very interesting, especially with these cars that are a lot lower to the ground, a lot stiffer. I think corners like Eau Rouge and Radion in the wet conditions will be far, far trickier than they've maybe ever been. So that would be something very interesting to see next time out at Spa. I think the drivers themselves won't be too pleased if they have any rain, but I think from a commentator standpoint, it would definitely make things very interesting, especially if it's interchangeable weather conditions. So that is one thing we could see next time out. But will we get 3 different winners in a row? It'll be very interesting to see. I think we've had maybe 2 surprise winners. Maybe not in Santeri. I think Santeri, maybe not a surprise. Maybe a surprise in a sense of how well he bounced back from Australia. And Philip Wouters, I think, maybe a surprise winner in the first race of the season. I wonder if there's going to be any other surprises that could pick up a win in the early phases.
I wonder. I think there's certain people. Obviously, Dan Urker hasn't picked up a win as of yet either. And I think we've seen people that maybe underperformed. Tom, on a few occasions, Austria, one of them, was almost on the edge to get the win. He unfortunately had a bit of a bottle. Today in Miami, he had a bit of a spin. Could have been up there to challenge for the podium positions, but like you were saying, he also got time penalties as well. But I was blabbling on too much because I was waiting for Rowan and Danerko to go into the interview room. But good news, everybody. We can get them in for an interview as hopefully my Discord doesn't have a bit of a hissy fit as we will drag... Oh, it's not letting me drag... Oh, that's weird. It's not letting me drag Rowan into the interview room. Oh, there we go. Eventually got there in the end. So we are interviewing one of our podium sitters for tonight's race. Rowan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Congratulations on another very good performance from you today in Miami. Do you think that it went better from you last week? Because that podium must have been a relief.
Yeah, I'm very happy with this podium. It is not my best track so far, but yeah, it went well in the quali and in the race. Other guys had amazing straight line speed, so yeah, it was pretty difficult to stay in DRS, but I managed to do it. So yeah, very happy.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, talk about your qualifying. Obviously, like us, it got a bit frustrating when you found out it was wet again. Did that change your approach a little bit going into the race?
Before the race, I did a wet qualifying session to practice, but because a week ago I didn't, so I was preparing for when it was wet. So this time I was okay with it.
Yeah, exactly as well. Obviously, you knew that Santeri was going to be out of the picture, so you were concentrating on the likes of Danerko and Tom. And when you saw the likes of Tom getting out of the picture, what was your main focus there as well? Did you want to get past Danerko, or were you just focusing on the podium at this point?
Yeah, when I saw that Santeri was gone, I was just trying to get the podium. Danerko and Tom were really fast on the straight, and I was fast as sector one. So it was for me only to stay in DRS. And when Tom spun and the other guys behind me made a mistake, so Danerko and me were the only two to go for P2 to fight. But yeah, he was so fast on the straight, so I couldn't attack him. But yeah, very happy with P3.
Awesome. Aidan, do you have any questions?
Congratulations on the podium, Roman, for you there. 2 points finishes in a row now to start off the season, so it's been a pretty solid start for yourself. What's the goal for the rest of the season? Do you think you can challenge for the title, or is it more about just trying to be a consistent points finisher?
I think it's more about consistency, to be in the top 6, top 7. That's my main goal, and to finish in top 5 of the championship.
Brilliant stuff. And then looking forward to next week, got Spa next time out. Again, another completely different track. You said Miami wasn't a favourite of yours. Is Spa a favourite, or is that another track that doesn't sit high on your rankings?
That's one of my favourite tracks, so I hope it's going to be okay there.
Sounds good then. Maybe we could have 3 different winners on the bounce if that's the case. But yeah, congratulations, Rowan, on your first podium of the season.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And your first podium in the top tier as well. So big congratulations. So we will now move on to our P2 man as well. A man that we have been so used to, well, Aidan's been so used to on the podium for the last few seasons. Is the man who finished in P2, pretty much was battling for the best of the rest. Danerko, can you hear us? And Danerko, if you can hear us, your mic's on mute. Well, it doesn't look like he can hear us for the time being. I wonder if he was on his phone. We may have to go into the rating room as well. We'll wait a couple more moments to see if he can hear us. Danerko, can you hear us? No, it doesn't look like it. So I think what we will do is we may try and go into the rating room in a second, and we'll try and squeeze him in because I don't think he can hear us, unfortunately, as well. But that is a bit of a shame. But whilst we do that, let's talk about Rowan's impressive performance as well. Don't forget, he was in F2 last season already, got a podium in his second race.
Yeah, podium in second race already. It's a great start to the season. Like I mentioned, 2 point scoring finishes to start off as well. So a really decent, solid start to the season. And as he's mentioned now, Spa potentially a favourite track of his. So maybe putting the pressure on himself a little bit to say that, but it could be another good result for him next time out in Spa. And with drivers a little bit up and down to start the season, it makes Rowan a bit of an early front runner at least. So that is a good start to the season for the Haas driver and for the Haas team as well. Of course, Legend picking up good points today in fifth. So Haas putting together a strong start to the season in these manufacturers' wise as well. So yeah, good all round for Haas.
Right, let's go into the rating room because I think that's what I did in another league and it's worked, to see if we can speak to our P2 man. So I'm going to go into the rating room at the moment. So Danerko, can you hear us?
I can't hear you.
What, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, good. So us going into the rating room did work. It was probably you on your phone or something. Congratulations on another podium from yourself. Continuing where you left off, I believe you will be taking the lead of the championship. How does it feel to get that P2? Was it the best you could do this weekend?
I'm a little bit disappointed, maybe, just because I'm not the fastest driver of all time in wet conditions, so it rained again. So I just misjudged the quali. I lost pole position in the last corner, and then I just had to do the overtakes, and so I started P6, I think, and then I just got like 2 overtakes maybe, and then with the safety car I couldn't do the undercut or something with the strategy, so it was like no brainer going into the pits and put medium tires. And then I rejoined P7, I think, because I made a mistake on the pit entry, and then I had to overtake 5 people, and we know how difficult it is this game. But I needed to make the overtakes to get a P2. Some guys just battled a bit too much and let Santeri go. So when I was P2, he had like 5 seconds of advantage, so it was impossible to catch. So considering the mistakes, the rain inequality, I think P2 is okay, but shouldn't happen. So yeah, we will see the next race.
I think I could definitely see that you wanted the P1 tonight, and I think it just goes to show how high caliber of a driver you actually are as well. And when that safety car came into play, were you a bit gutted that you had to go onto the means a little bit later, or did you know you were going to get your tyres to the end?
I didn't do that much of a practice for like tire wear, so I just thought everyone was going on the medium tires. I thought about it going on for 2 softs, but it was too difficult because you have to overtake everybody then, because everyone was going to the medium. So the 2 softs won't work. So just go mediums and make the overtakes on track. Also, it was difficult, but it was the only thing possible.
Fair enough. Aidan, any questions?
Well, welcome back to the podium room again, Danerko. Nice to speak to you again for the millionth time, it feels like at this point. But I guess looking forward to the rest of the season. Of course, Santeri was a standout driver today. Philip Wouters won last week. We know that you're going to be a championship front runner, championship contender. Is there anybody else that you think is your rival right now, that one that you're looking out for the rest of the season, or do you think Santeri and Philip Wouters are the main ones at the moment?
No, I just think that everyone is fast enough to be like front runner, so it's just capitalizing, if you can say that, or just be ready to the condition of the track. Like today was wet, last time was wet, and was not ready for wet conditions, and I qualified P7 last time and P5 this time. I could have got top 3 last week and also today in the dry conditions, and was very fast in the race. So you just need to adapt to everything that can happen. Also, like Wouters won last week. Now he's P6, it can change. So
Yep, definitely shows how it can change. And I guess I'll ask the same question I asked to Rowan as well. Spa next time, another completely different track to the two we've driven so far. How do you feel about your chances at Spa? Of course, is it a track that you think that you can win at again, or is it a track that maybe doesn't suit you too well?
it was my favorite track last year. I didn't draw that too much this year, so I got pole last season. So we will try to repeat it.
Yeah, definitely something to try and repeat. That would be definitely a very good thing to do. But yeah, congratulations on your podium once again. And yeah, like Jess said, I believe into the lead of the championship. So congratulations on a great first 2 rounds of the season.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening, Danoco. Congratulations. And we are about to wrap up today's proceedings for the Miami Grand Prix. And as we were saying earlier, we talked a little bit about the Belgian Grand Prix, a very exciting track. Make sure you join us next week for that. Aidan, any final thoughts before we round off the stream?
I think to just tack on to Danoco's point that he made at the end there, it just goes to show these first 2 rounds, we've had a completely different pecking order pretty much in both races. And that is the really exciting thing about the first season on a new game, isn't it? As people get used to it and build in confidence and get used to the handling model, especially after the update last week, it's showing that people are still struggling to get fully used to this game at the moment, and this game does seem to be a lot trickier than the previous one, which is giving us different pecking orders every week. I think after even 2 rounds last season in PSGL Season 30, it was pretty easy to predict who the front 3 or 4 drivers were going to be pretty much every time, and you'd have that one-off random performance from one driver. So far, pretty much everybody is up and down as it stands. Santeri retired last week and completely dominates this race, whereas Philip Wouters won last week and was kind of invisible today. So just goes to show that this game is very difficult and people are still getting used to it. So that's going to make, especially the first half of the season, really, really interesting. And I'm looking forward to see who comes out on top.
So am I, and thank you very much for listening. And if you want some more PSGL action, make sure you check out all of the PSGL Miami races from this week. And we'll be back with some more Belgium action on Wednesday evening with the top tier on the PC, with George Morgan being back in the commentary box. So very exciting with Dan Field. And then on Thursday, we have got the PC F2, F3, F4, F5 and F6 tiers being streamed. And then on Sunday, we've got the lower PS tiers being streamed. Then, of course, we've got myself and Aidan bringing you the action for PS F1 at 8 PM UK time next week. So for myself and Aidan, thank you very much for listening. We will leave you with some videos from Grid Rival and our title sponsor, GT Omega. Have a good evening and goodbye.
Broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega and Grid Rival, proudly supporting PSGL.